How did you accidentally catch your significant other cheating? I returned from a trip 4 hours early. My wife was supposed to be still at work. I opened the door and saw her sitting topless on the couch, kissing our neighbor. The neighbor rushed out the door. My wife ran into the bathroom and locked herself in. I sat on that couch for about an hour because I didn't know what else to do. Eventually, I got up and left so she could come out of the bathroom and get dressed. I was on a work trip, supposed to be away for 10 days, but managed to come back home a day early. My friend picked me up from the airport to surprise my wife and our 2 kids. Caught my wife and her friend comfortably settled on the couch. My kids were in the same room as my wife and her friend. I was furious. Of course, she denied everything. We divorced a few weeks later. I sent a message to our mutual friend, asking to borrow a router. He didn't respond, but no big deal. He lives nearby. I can just swing by and pick it up. I drove to his house and started approaching his driveway. He has a long driveway, like those in suburban houses, so it took a few seconds before I noticed that my car, I was driving a work van that day, was already there. My heart sank, but my wife and he are friends and business partners. I got out of the van, looked, and saw through the window that our friend was shirtless in his bedroom. At that moment, my heart just dropped, and I trembled. I entered the house and went straight upstairs. He was alone, managed to get dressed. I said, "Can I borrow the router? Also, have you seen my wife? Our car is here." He started spouting the worst improvisation I've ever heard. "Seriously?" "Yes. She came here today." Regardless, I knew she was there. I just wanted him to confess. I went downstairs, took the router, and walked towards the van, where I finally spotted my wife, topless, trying to sneak around the side of his house. One small detail that made me suspicious was the passenger seat in her car. Whenever we went somewhere, she always kept the seat raised. One day she picked me up, and the seat was heavily reclined back. There were other signs as well, but it was the seat that made me wonder that something was off. I caught my ex cheating thanks to something as simple as Pokemon Go. She claimed that Pokemon Go took up too much phone memory. I explained that in the settings, she could see how much space the app occupied. I decided to show her and proved she was wrong by pointing out that Tinder took up much more memory. It was sad, but at the same time, it was amusing how it all came out. One of my former colleagues loaded a project file onto an SD card. He inserted the card into the computer in the conference room and showed us a video of his wife with another man. We were all just stunned. This happened during a management meeting with accountants and auditors to discuss the budget, and he sat at the table while we watched. Eventually, I turned off the projector. No one said anything. He stood up, left, and drove away in his car. His phone and laptop were left on the table. In the end, he drove through 3 states and reached his parents. He didn't show up at work for a week. This didn't happen to me. It happened to my dad. He told me this story a few years ago. In short, some of my mom's relatives who lived in another city came to visit. They had agreed to spend the evening playing board games, but my dad couldn't attend because he had to work from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. He finished work early, and on his way home, he ran into our nanny on the street. "Aren't you supposed to be with child?" "No, your wife called around 8 p.m., said she wasn't feeling well and would stay home." My dad went home, tried to open the front door. It was locked. The lights were off. He entered the house through the basement door, went upstairs, heard them just a few meters away. My mom and her cousin. 2 years later, he almost left her, but stayed for me to have a normal life. I almost always feel like he should have left, as he wouldn't have had to work 90 to 100 hours a week to be at home as little as possible. Came home, and my husband wasn't there. It was strange because it was already 8 p.m. And just an hour before that, he told me he was heading home. A hunch told me to go to our friend's apartment, whom he referred to as a sister, and his van was parked there. Knocked. No one answered. Tried the door. It wasn't locked. Walked into the living room. No one was there. Heard sounds from the bedroom. Walked in and saw them. Over the next couple of months, we tried to save the marriage, but I couldn't forget it, and I didn't want him even to touch me. We divorced 4 years ago. After trying to keep up with my wife and her colleague and drinking all night, I decided to go to bed. A few minutes later, they stopped talking, and the dog started scratching the door. I let the dog in and saw them kissing on the couch. I watched them for 10 minutes before they noticed me. By that time, they were already starting to undress. This meant there were no excuses. I'm glad I found out about everything. She used to want to be with me all the time and wasn't too thrilled when I spent time with friends, went to concerts, or anything else. And suddenly, everything changed. She didn't react at all when I went out with friends, went to a music festival, or anywhere else. At first, I thought she had finally matured, but no, she was having fun with someone else behind my back. He suddenly became concerned about his appearance but didn't want me to look good. He went on a diet, started wearing contact lenses, and began shaving his pubic hair, something he hadn't done for me. Also, he became distant, lost interest in intimacy. He spent a lot of time on his phone, had strange mood swings unrelated to our relationship. My girlfriend and I were maintaining a long-distance relationship, and she had a habit of occasionally going off the grid. She had been messaging me for the past few weeks but, under some pretext, refused to come visit. I went to a party organized by my friend, where I met his girlfriend. She told me that my friend had a new girlfriend. I was surprised he hadn't mentioned her before and asked who she was. This friend introduced me to my girlfriend. She told everyone that we had broken up, and she had been dating my friend for about a month, and she didn't bother to tell me about it. In all of my relationships that ended because of infidelity, there was one common denominator. My ex-partners constantly accused me of being unfaithful, for any reason and without cause. I never cheated. For example, my last ex accused me of planning to cheat on him with a TV actor. I didn't even know the actor's name. I just mentioned that he looked attractive. It led to a huge argument. Later, it turned out that my ex-partners were the ones cheating on me with just friends. 5 years later, the absurdity of this behavior still occasionally astonishes me. Perhaps they were projecting their own infidelity onto me. I'm not on the best terms with my family. On Thanksgiving, I decided to cook a turkey for my girlfriend and suggested spending the evening together. However, she chose to go to the roommate's family next door, the roommate, whom I learned shortly after, she cheated on me with. I had been dating a girl for a long time and repeatedly caught her cheating. Here's what I can say. She didn't attend public events or parties with me, constantly came up with reasons why I couldn't go, stayed out late. She didn't tell anyone that she was in a relationship. It was awful when our mutual friend said, "Wait, are you still together? I thought you broke up." When I picked her up from parties she didn't want to go with me. She came from a completely different place, not where the supposed party was. She wasn't okay with my unannounced visits. She had new clothes I hadn't seen. She didn't talk about shopping, although she usually did. New items appearing without explanations or mentions, such as gifts, jewelry, t-shirts, hoodies. Didn't want to kiss me or show affection. Affection seemed forced. Desire to be independent in everything. Vague descriptions of where she had been. Confused about where she went first or who she saw there. It was very strange, but I laughed. It wasn't hysterical laughter, just ordinary laughter. He told me himself. We just talked while lying down. He began to justify himself, saying it happened under the influence of alcohol, and the affair itself happened almost a year ago. Then I joked about it for a long time, and still occasionally make jokes. There was no jealousy. We are still together, and there was no distrust or scandals following this. She started persuading me to go out more without her. Before, she never did that. Couldn't stand being apart from me. Looking back, you could say there were many signs, but I didn't notice anything. She cheated on me with one of my best friends for a year, and I didn't notice anything. When I came home from work, she would leave for her job, and I would spend time with our child. When he was about 1.5 years old, she started going to the bar with her colleagues. I didn't mind at first because it wasn't frequent, maybe one evening a week, and she would come home around midnight. It quickly escalated to returning home between 2:30 and 4 a.m., about 4 to 6 times a week. She started mentioning one colleague often and how cool he was. My paranoia got the better of me, and one night I checked her phone. She was trying to arrange a meeting with the colleague at an abandoned gas station a few kilometers from our home. I confronted her and asked what she planned to do when he showed up. She said, "Just hang out and chat," to which I replied, "At 2 a.m., at an abandoned gas station?" She never admitted to cheating, but numerous not-so-subtle hints and acquaintances who saw her at the bar gave me all I needed. One day, she mentioned her ex with tenderness in her voice. That was all I had, but suspicions arose. That weekend, we broke up. Her neighbor told me she was planning to meet with her ex over the weekend. It took just one sentence that sounded different from the rest. The most subtle sign, in my ex's apartment, there was a toothbrush holder in the bathroom. Every time I stayed overnight, I used the toothbrush and put it back in the holder, but every time I visited her on weekends, my toothbrush was on the top shelf, and hers was in the holder. There were many other signs, but this one was the most inconspicuous. I was dating a guy for just over 2 years. The first love and all that. When I found out, I just slid down the wall, sprawled on the floor, and sobbed for a couple of hours. Afterward, I severed all ties, aside from the typical blocking. I changed schools and left all mutual friends, and he tried to mend things for a while, but overall, we didn't communicate normally anymore. That's the banal ending. I found out from Instagram that this girl, with whom he cheated, posted a photo the morning after the betrayal. Now, about the backstory. I was dating this guy for only 2 months, but during that time, I fell deeply in love. He moved from another city where he was studying remotely. The time came for him to go for his exams. Before that, we had a conversation that he couldn't find a job and accommodation in the city. I strained all my acquaintances, and we found him a job and a room. We agreed that as soon as he returned, he would start working, and then he left. He wrote that he didn't have money for a return ticket and that he had some problems to solve in his hometown, and then he would come back. I sent him the money. Yes, I was foolish, but I was very much in love. I transferred all my modest savings. I was a student. He called, said he loved me, and would come back. And then one fine morning, in the Instagram recommendations, his best friend appeared, posting an unequivocal photo. After that, depression, conflicts, withdrawal, and a complete lack of trust in people. Edited, and yes, on the same day, he moved in with her and lived there for several months without working. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, left a comment of more than 4 words, and subscribe to this channel. We greatly appreciate you. Much respect from us. Stay tuned for the next video.